Species. Unite.
And the thing that really makes me sad is that we humanize them when they're little by putting them in diapers and feeding them bottles and dressing them in clothes. And then we demonize them when they grow up and act like the wild animal that they are. Because people think if they neuter them, if they get their teeth removed, not my chimp. My chimp's not going to act like that.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Novogratz. This is Species Unite. We have a favor to ask. If you liked today's episode and you have a spare minute, could you please rate and review Species Unite on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts? It really helps people to find the show. Last week, we released an episode with Brittany Peet. She's PETA's general counsel for captive animal law enforcement, and she is featured in the HBO docuseries Chimp Crazy. If you haven't seen Chimp Crazy, please see it. It's made by Eric Goode, the guy who made Tiger King, and it's equally shocking. It also shines a light on the need to pass the Captive Primate Safety Act, and there are many high hopes that this act could get passed this year because of Chimp Crazy. Chimp Crazy focuses on chimpanzee owners, private owners that buy cute baby chimps, dress them up, and treat them like small human children until they're 5 or 6 years old, when the chimps become large and very strong wild animals. This part usually ends badly. Well, it always ends badly for the chimps, but quite often it does for the humans too. This conversation is with Angela Scott. Angela is the whistleblower in Chimp Crazy, and for this entire case. Things get complicated, so I'm going to give a little background. Angela volunteered at a place called Chimp Party for a woman named Connie Casey. Connie and her husband Mike bred and sold chimpanzees and other primates for decades. PETA got involved because of the horrific condition these chimps were living in. Angela was the whistleblower, and she worked with PETA. But before the case could actually go through, Connie gave her chimps away to a woman named Tanya Haddix. So the chimps were in Tanya's care when they were rescued. Well, all of them except one, a chimp named Tonka. Tanya tried to keep Tonka for herself. She hid him from PETA for months in a cage in her basement. All of the chimps, including Tonka, were eventually saved because of Angela's willingness to go back to Connie's and film what she saw. Angela's stories of what these chimps went through are astonishing. And I'm very grateful to her for sharing them with us. I'm so happy to have you here. I feel really lucky because last night was the last episode of the docuseries of Chimp Crazy. It was a 4-part series. I actually saw the last episode early this morning. But for people who haven't seen it, and I hope everybody, if you haven't seen it, you do watch it, because I think everybody should see it. But will you just give like a brief overview?
For those of you who don't know, the producer, Mr. Eric Goode of Tiger King, shines a light on the exploitation and buying and selling of exotic animals on the black market. This docuseries it's about a chimp named Tonka. It's actually about a lot of chimps. Originally, it was about Missouri Primate Foundation and my work there and my desire to pursue PETA to help the chimps that I was working with. During the course of our lawsuit, Connie, to moot the lawsuit, signed all the chimps over to a woman named Tanya Haddix, who basically stole a chimp, hid him in her basement, and was going to kill him. And PETA rescued him. It is a hard watch. And I hear that a lot. It's a difficult subject. It's emotional, but I encourage people to take that emotion and turn it into passion, turn it into action. And maybe we don't have to have things like this happen in the world.
You played a very big role in the entire case, because without you, it wouldn't have happened. So you played a key role, I would say, a pivotal role as the whistleblower. Let's talk about how this all started in the sense of when you entered the scene as a volunteer, thinking, hey, I want to go do good. And what a great place to do good at.
That's exactly how it happened. I actually started in 1998 at a biomedical research lab. I was a chimpanzee caregiver, not a technician. I didn't do any sort of research. I was strictly environmental enrichment and a care provider. And it's the first time I ever saw a chimp. And there's a famous quote by Mark Twain. It's the two most important days of your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. And when I walked into this lab, I saw baby chimps who were research subjects for RSV and hepatitis B research. And the first chimp that I took care of, his name was Logan. He was 4. And I opened his cage and got inside with him. And he leapt into my arms and gave me this just tight, incredible hug. And it was just, I mean, I cried. I was just beside myself with emotion. And what I was watching was animals that have the cognitive ability that's comparable to a toddler, who share more than 98% of our DNA, being singly housed alone and being put through invasive research. The baby chimps were one. They couldn't be housed alone. They were housed in pairs because they would die of loneliness. And chimps that are kept in solitary confinement or in captivity where they have no environmental enrichment or no life per se exhibit signs of psychological neglect and abuse. They have incessant rocking. They make noises with their mouth. They have OCD behaviors. They pull out their hair. They self-inflict harm. And I couldn't work in a lab anymore. It was just, I got to the point where I couldn't look at myself in the mirror as a human being. I just was so traumatized and it was just eating at my soul. So I decided that I wanted to go work at a sanctuary.
For people who don't know, we don't test on chimpanzees anymore, although we still have some chimps stuck in these labs. They're warehoused in these labs.
Correct.
And it's super political and absurd that they're still there. But we do still test on over 75,000 other primates every year. So it's still a massive thing. Okay, keep going.
Somebody mentioned Chimp Party and Mike and Connie Casey. I immediately reached out via email and I was shocked that I heard back almost immediately from Mike. And I was under the impression that, because what they told me was that they had retired circus performers, lab chimps, and that they provided a forever home for these chimps. They didn't tell me anything about breeding. There was a lot that I didn't know. 2 weeks after I talked to Mike, I packed my stuff and I moved out to Missouri. And it was not long before I knew that I had gotten myself into something that I was going to regret. First of all, Mike is a former Marine. He's about 6'3" and he weighs 300 pounds. He had an extremely domineering, controlling, abusive personality. And, I guess people like me wear this sign on their forehead that says victim, because I was a victim of child abuse and I was a people pleaser. And that sort of personality it was very easy for him to control me, even as far as what shoes I wore. And if I didn't wear makeup, he made me go back to my room, type of thing. He was extremely, extremely mean and controlling. And when I walked in, they had these cages in the house with 2 baby chimps. That was Connor and Kelly, were the first babies that I met there. And they had an infant who was just maybe a month old. And they took me on a tour of the facility, and I was appalled at the conditions. They had water buckets that had dead flies in them. Their cages were strewn with debris. They were their own waste. And what they told me was that Connie had health issues and he was busy in the entertainment part of it. So they needed somebody just basically as a cage cleaner and somebody to give them their food and just a basic, caregiver.
How many chimps did they have there at that time?
When I got there were 32 chimps. And the first twin chimps that I ever met, Colin and Colleen, the first question I asked was, where's the mom? And what they told me was, and it's this false narrative that a lot of people in this industry use to sort of bait people, and it's that chimpanzee moms are not good moms in captivity, that they abandon their babies, that they are not good mothers, which is 100% not the case, which I saw. And that was sort of one of the red flags too, was seeing that these babies weren't with their moms. And I was sort of naive at the time, and I thought that it was plausible that maybe I was still very early on in my chimp experience, and I didn't have any experience with chimps. I had read a lot of Jane Goodall books, but I wasn't knowledgeable about chimps in captivity. So what they told me was that they kept the babies for chimp parties, which was sort of I can remember the message on their machine. It was, "This is not a circus act or a performance. It's an experience. It's a chance for an opportunity for people to get up close and personal with a great ape." Is how the message went, and I thought that they were, educating people on chimps in captivity. And I asked why he did entertainment work, and he told me that the chimps there had to earn their own keep. That's quote unquote. Um, and the abuse of the chimps was from day one.
Who was abusing the chimps?
Mike. And Connie was sort of maybe, I guess, a me personality where she was very submissive. She didn't do anything. She just sat silent. She never chastised him. She never had a problem with it. The first thing I saw was him throw a shoe at a cage with Connor in it because he was rocking, which again, these are behaviors that they do when they don't have enough stimulation in their environment. In the wild, chimp babies are with their mom for the first 3 to 6 months. They hang on the belly, and up to a year. Then they're not weaned until 4 or 5 years old. So they have this intimate, close bond with their moms that human beings can't facilitate. It's really, really hard to do. So they would Mike called it blowing raspberries, where they would just, and it drove him absolutely nuts. He would grab them through the cage or get in their face and say, "I told you to knock it off," in a very, domineering voice. And so immediately I knew that I had got myself into something that was not going to go well. But I used all my money. I had completely moved, and I wasn't getting paid there. So I went and I got a job at Walmart. So I didn't make any money when I was strictly a volunteer, and I lived on the property.
I'm just going to clarify for people who haven't seen it. It was called Chimp Party at that time, but it's the same thing as Missouri Primate Foundation. She just changed the name later, right?
Correct. She went nonprofit. So I worked there off and on for 7 years. Thing is I kept leaving because it was crushing my soul, but I kept going back because it was crushing my soul. Because I felt like I was the only thing that they had to look forward to. And it was like they were saying, "Help me." The last thing that happened when I could no longer deal with it was I watched them dart a mom down. Her name was Tammy. And she was in a hammock and she was cradling her baby. And Mike and Connie hid behind a wall with a blow dart, and they shot her with a dart of ketamine, and she collapsed on top of her baby. She fell out of the hammock, and then they have to pry the baby off and simultaneously stuff a blanket or a stuffed animal in their hands because they have this fear of letting go, because of course they need to hold on. So if they're not holding something, that's why you always see monkeys with a blanket or a stuffed animals. If they don't have that security, they scream because they think that they're falling. They drug her back into her cage in the basement. She got a bowl of fruit as a consolation for having her baby taken from her. And I was so traumatized. And the first thing I did was I went downstairs in the basement because I wanted to be there when she woke up. And first of all, ketamine is a very strong drug, and it's also a horse tranquilizer. So the effects of it are, the side effects are hard. They vomit. They're very disoriented. They're very lethargic. And she, for about 3 days, did not eat, was in a fetal position on her barrel that she had in her cage, and she was smelling the blanket from where her baby was, and she would look repeatedly. And these cages aren't big. This cage was like a dog run basically. And I didn't ever tell anybody this, but Tammy actually grabbed me. Um, I think it was the day after her baby was taken. I was the first person she saw, and I'm pretty sure she probably associated me with maybe taking the baby, because they hide so that they can't see who's darting them, and they scream at the top of their lungs. And she could hear her baby, and that was just, it's just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. I did go back one other time after that, but I left for a couple years after that. And when I came back, they had a chimp. Her name was Gabby, and she was probably the top breeder, I guess you would say. She had more than 15 babies. She was 50, and she had a baby. They decided that she deserved to keep one of her babies, and they took him at 3 days, gave him back to her at a month, and they recorded it. So I got to watch the video, and I saw her rip the blanket off the baby and pick him up, and just, they make this noise. It's when they're happy. And a year later, somebody called and they wanted a 1 year old chimp, and they darted her for a second time and took this baby again. She was so happy, and I couldn't even imagine. She must have known as soon as they isolated her from her group, because they have to isolate them to tranquilize them, because the other chimps wouldn't stand for it. They took him again, and that was just, it was absolutely horrific. And Connie and Mike are the most prolific chimpanzee breeders in the United States, and are responsible for more than 3/4 of the pet population of chimpanzees in this country. Maybe 165 chimps. She's been breeding for 40 years. And the thing is it's not a coincidence that Buck, Susie, and Travis were all killed. It's, we can't have people in society walking around with pet chimpanzees. It's a public safety risk. And this is this is the reason that chimps do not belong in the pet trade. I don't know how, how many more people have to be attacked, or how many more chimps have to be killed before people realize that you just can't have a chimpanzee as a pet.
You would think after Travis was the chimp in Connecticut that completely mauled his owner's friend and destroyed her, like completely, like took her whole face off and her hands off.
And her hands.
Which was major, major news at the time. And I'm pretty sure most people, at least people who are of a certain age, right, remember it. But you would think after that, that would be enough for people. And the weirdest thing to me is, like, we know, and especially all of these breeders and people like Connie know that once chimps are a certain size and a certain age, they are not these cute little things that do handstands and do whatever you ask them, right? And so, at least from the movie, it feels like once they're a certain age, they lock them up in little prisons. Pretty much everybody does, right?
It's inevitable. I mean, a pet chimpanzee it's one of three things will happen. When they get 6 or 7, they start to reach sexual maturity. And just like human beings, they experience a roller coaster of emotions. Females get, they call it estrus, but they get cramps, they get mood swings. Boys get testosterone, they get rebellious, they get territorial. You know, when male chimps display, it's almost art when you watch it. I mean, for somebody like me, I mean, it's magnificent to watch the strength. But the average chimp has the combined strength of 5 men and can pull 500 pounds with one arm. The world record for a female chimp is pulling 1,000 pounds with one arm. They had actual jail bars for cages. So people don't realize the economical impact of housing an adult chimpanzee. They don't understand the psychological needs of a chimpanzee. So they either end up dumping them off. So they get dumped at a public zoo, a private zoo. They escape and they get killed, or they die alone in a cage. It's just inevitable that it will end in tragedy. And I don't understand why, like you said, it's 2024 and we still got to tell people why it's wrong to have a pet chimp. I mean, I encourage people to contact their state legislator and sign the Captive Primate Safety Act, which would prohibit people from owning chimpanzees and other primates, which again is good for the safety of people in general. And back when I was working there, a baby chimp was a female was $60,000 and a male was $65,000, and Connie sold over 100.
When you were working there, I mean, I'm sure you saw a lot, but like, who was buying these chimps? Was it individuals?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah. Michael Jackson actually before he got Bubbles, he reached out to Connie. I do know there was a man named Elon who did a Tarzan act. He had a Black Panther. He bought a chimp named Cozy, who ended up biting his girlfriend because he died and she wasn't able to handle him. And he was confiscated by their government in Spain. And yeah, people pull up in trailers to buy baby chimps. And the thing is people are ready to accept the narrative that they put forward that, oh, they were abandoned by their moms aren't good, to reconcile their own guilt, because anybody with an ounce of compassion knows that this mother had to feel some loss. Years later, my mom's been a member of PETA for a long time, and she called me in 2015 and she said, Angie, PETA's going after Connie and her chimps. And the first thing that came to my mind was, I want to help. So I contacted PETA and they put me in touch with Brittany, and I said, look, I'm a former volunteer and I'd like to help you. And at first they were even suspicious, like, because they, it was like, what are you going to get out of this? And I said, look, once I met with Brittany and we had this, we met for coffee outside DC and we talked for hours. And I told her that.
Brittany is the lawyer from PETA.
Correct. Brittany. Yeah. Brittany and Jared. I said, I'm doing this because these chimps are my friends and I care about them. And I had been wanting to do something for a long time and I couldn't. And this was my opportunity. And when they asked me, here's the thing, to litigate a case, first of all, prior to the enactment of the Endangered Species Act, there was no protection for captive chimps. In the wild, yes, but not in captivity. So when they passed that law, PETA was actually able to pursue legal action against people who had captive chimps and were violating this act, which meant causing them any kind of harm, which meant, lack of environmental enrichment, how they're housed, all sorts of things. And Connie failed every single one of them. And but they need evidence, of course. And Connie is a very private person. Mike and her split up. I don't know, it was a few years after I left. When I went back in 2007, they weren't on good terms. They were living in separate houses. So I sort of expected that. But Connie's a hoarder. And and I say that, I mean, textbook. And what I found out from talking to a veterinarian is that that's consistently what they see in people who have exotic animals. It's almost an illness. I mean, she has thousands and thousands of chimp knickknacks. I mean, everywhere you go in her house, you'll see, knickknacks everywhere. But when I went back to get the footage for PETA, there were dogs everywhere, dogs that had injuries. There was inside the house, there were roaches and I mean, it had gone down a lot. And Connie's health had declined and it was just, it was horrible. Absolutely horrible.
So when you went back, what year was this? When you went back for PETA?
2015.
Did you say to Connie, "Hey, I want to come back and volunteer again"? I mean, how did that work?
I just called and I said I wanted to visit the chimps.
Mm-hmm.
That was true. I was really nervous. And PETA said, we need evidence. So, and they didn't ask me to do anything other than film what I saw. And the evidence was there. I didn't need to do anything. I mean, it was absolutely horrible. It was chaos. It was just absolutely insane what was going on there.
Like, describe it a little bit for people.
So you've got 13 dogs that are jumping at the chimp cages, and the chimps are screaming and banging and displaying. It was just a nightmare. The cages were filled with moldy food and mouse poop. When I went into the pink room, which is a room that they had built later on, the urine smell was so strong that I couldn't even go in. They had given me these, I don't like to use their trade secrets, but they gave me these glasses that had a
Yeah.
camera. And she let me film with my phone, but I, I wanted to make sure I got it. And I couldn't even go in because it was burning my throat, the ammonia. So imagine what it was like for them to live that way. And Kimmy, she didn't make it out, unfortunately. She won her freedom, but she died right before we were able to get her out. She was a, a circus chimp. She knew sign language, and her favorite thing to do was apple and hug because she loved apples and hugs. So anytime she saw me, it was apple hug, apple hug, apple hug. And back in the day, they removed all their teeth. So a lot of chimps there had their teeth removed as a safety precaution. So she couldn't even defend herself.
I think that's what baffles me the most about these people that want to own chimpanzees. Like they all seem to end up in these kind of situations once they're adults.
What is mind boggling is that, like I said in Chimp Crazy, is she didn't think she was doing anything wrong. She genuinely believes that she loves her chimps and that she was doing right by her chimps, and that there's also this common misconception that captive chimps who have been raised as humans in a human environment can no longer live with chimps. And accredited sanctuaries like Save the Chimps have successfully integrated chimps into large family groups that are conducive to their recovery from being isolated, where they engage in typical natural chimp behavior like grooming, foraging, developing strong family bonds, and they flourish. I mean, do you see Tonka before and after? I mean, he's just magnificent. And, the bald spots are gone, and you can see life in his eyes again. And it's just amazing. And a lot of people, I mean, don't realize you have to be proficient in your knowledge of the complexities of chimp behavior in order to organize groups like that. And that's their expertise. And most people don't know that it takes between $16,000 and $25,000 per chimp per year to house a chimp properly. That means vet care, proper staff, environmental enrichment, food. Just people, they just don't understand. And the thing that really makes me sad is that we humanize them when they're little by putting them in diapers and feeding them bottles and dressing them in clothes, and then we demonize them when they grow up and act like the wild animal that they are, because people think if they neuter them, if they get their teeth removed. Not my chimp. My chimp's not going to act like that. I don't know, what is the word, this dream idea that they have that everything's going to work out because they think that it's going to be different. And it doesn't matter if you alter them, it doesn't matter if you take their teeth out. They're dangerous and should not be kept as pets. And it's just that simple. I mean, they just live just such a horrible, horrible life as a pet.
When you went back for PETA and you were filming, was there any part of you
Mhm.
that felt like you were,
Betraying
yeah,
her? Absolutely. I said that too. I felt even, and I haven't told anybody this either, but my daughter was with me, and my kids actually lived there the second time that I went back. My daughter stopped talking to me for a while after that because Connie, she's not a mean person. She's quiet and reserved, very private. She was very affectionate to her baby chimps.
did a lot of chimps end up back at Connie's, whether it's because the people couldn't handle them or they got too big?
90%.
Wow.
90%. I can't tell you how many chimps ended up back at Connie's. People that their chimps weren't born there reached out to Connie. So, yes, I did feel bad. I still feel bad about how it happened. But at the end of the day, my loyalty was not to Connie, it was to the chimps. And I had to do it. I didn't do it with hate in my heart. I didn't do it to hurt her. I did it to help the chimps. I wish that there had been another way. I wish that the laws were stronger. I wish that Connie had come to some epiphany and realized what she was doing. But I realized after all of this that she hates PETA more than she loves her chimps. And that the proof of that is that she signed those chimps over to Tanya, which Tanya has no chimpanzee experience. None. None. None.
Tanya, meaning Tanya Haddix, who took over. I'm just clarifying for people who haven't seen it. But Tanya Haddix took over from Connie during all of this craziness of Chimp Crazy. I think most people would snap if they were kept in a cage the way they are.
Think about it. I mean, for a female, this is what I compare it to. It would be like putting a woman in jail in a prison cell, literally behind bars for never committing a crime, being forced to breed, and then being tranquilized every other year, having 15 children, and having your children taken away from you over and over and over. What would your psychological profile look like? I mean, it's insane. I hope that somehow, after people see this and they see all the follow-ups and they see these podcasts, I really, truly hope that people will demand that this law be passed.
Me too.
And I mean, think about how many lives it could save, potentially chimp lives and human lives alike.
And other primates.
Right.
None of them should be in captivity. Like zero.
Right. They had a mandrill who, I mean, if you saw the canines on this baboon, and he was magnificent looking, but he was alone in a corn crib with a concrete floor.
Oh my God.
With no enrichment. I mean, they forage for food, and they go travel for miles in the wild. And thank goodness, I mean, Save the Chimps has been able to give them some semblance of what their natural life would be like. And it's an amazing facility, and I get to go see Tonka, and I'm so excited.
I was there 5 or 6 years ago. It's spectacular. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
It really is. It's incredible. Thank God we have places like Save the Chimps. Not many.
Yeah.
But.
And even, no. The lady for the Center for Great Apes is really good friends with Connie, and she hates me. So I wasn't able to go see Connor or Tammy, but she doesn't like what I did. A lot of people don't like what I did.
You know what? If you didn't do what you did, there'd still be a lot of chimps suffering that aren't not suffering now.
Oh, I mean, watching Tonka makes everything worth it.
Yeah. Just the end of the last episode is so beautiful and
heartwarming, right?
And thank God you did what you did. And thank you for doing what you did.
You're welcome. My mom says all the time how proud she is, but it's sort of like, it's almost like, I mean, who wouldn't?
You would hope.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, let's hope that this series really changes everything with the Captive Primate Safety Act.
I hope so.
Yes. There are over 15,000 primates living in private homes in the U.S., which is not only cruel, it's absolutely insane. So we need the Captive Primate Safety Act to pass. So if you have a second, go to our website, speciesunite.com, click on petitions, and sign the petition asking Congress to pass this act. To learn more about Angela Scott, to learn more about PETA, to learn more about, or just to see Chimp Crazy, go to our website, speciesunite.com. We will have links to everything. We're on Facebook and Instagram at Species Unite. If you have a spare moment and could do us a favor, please subscribe, rate, review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. It really helps people find the show. I would like to thank everyone at Species Unite, including Gary Knutson, Caitlin Pierce, Amy Jones, Paul Healy, Santina Polke-Link, Ciara Dolan, and Anna Kalner, who wrote and performed today's music. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day.